I'll start in 2001. I was in New York City. I was living the New York City bright lights, big city lifestyle. I lived on Houston between Avenue A, and I was partying. I was drinking. I was into drugs, and my life was going downhill, Renzo. I was almost 30 years old, and my life was a mess. And that year,
it's amazing how one thing drags the other.
Oh yeah.
You don't realize it escalates in such a way that if you're not careful, you know?
Yeah, and that's what happened to me. I had a girlfriend for 4 years. We broke up that year. As you know, 9/11 happened that year, so the planes went into the Trade Center. I was living not far away, and I overdosed from drugs that year, all right? I overdosed from heroin that year, and it was the lowest point in my life. And luckily, I got out of New York City because I had to get out of that city, and I moved to London in January 2002. And about 4 months later, one of my good friends from New York called me up and he said, Brian, you gotta try something. And I said, what? He said, it's called Jiu-Jitsu. I'd never heard of it before. Nobody had really heard of it unless you really knew what was going on. And he said, you gotta try it. And Renzo, I had never done any real physical activity in 10 years since I was in high school, right? I was all about my brain. You know, I studied in engineering. I worked on Wall Street, all that stuff. And I Googled it. Google was probably just invented. And I found a guy in London who was one of Renzo Gracie's students, actually. And we started training one Saturday a week. And I kid you not, Renzo, I trained every week for 8 years. One Saturday became Saturday and Sunday. And Jiu-Jitsu gave me my life back. I was a shell of a man, and it built me up. It got everything back right in my life. I got my blue belt, got my purple belt later from Renzo Gracie. I started training boxing, Thai boxing. It changed everything. And today I'm sober. I got a beautiful family. I'm doing this show. But Renzo, if it wasn't,
Awesome,
and my buddy was training, he was training at your academy in New York City. John Danaher was his coach. He trained at the old place on 37th Street and 8th Avenue. And I'll tell you the last part of the story is I went back to New York City a year later. And I wouldn't go back to New York because I didn't want to go back. I didn't want to relapse. But I waited a year and I came back to New York and we went and we trained a private with John Danaher at your old studio above the Methadone Clinic on 37th Street. And that was my journey, man. And I've been, off the drugs since then. So I just want to thank you, man. You gave me my life.
Beautiful, man. Beautiful, brother. This Jiu-Jitsu is an amazing tool to help people, to make them stronger. It's a funny thing. People say, but physically, I don't think I'm fit for Jiu-Jitsu. Jiu-Jitsu will fit you. Even if you're a midget, doesn't matter. You're going to be good. I have two students that they are handicapped. They don't have the movements from the legs. And every time they are in New York, one of them fights a lot, competes a lot. And every time he's in New York, I go there and I stay hours with them on the mat to exchange knowledge because they find leverages in things that for the fact that I have the movements of my legs, I can never develop. And I learn from them a lot. They come back to teach me, it's insane. So in reality, you just described Jiu-Jitsu perfectly. It adapts to you, it changes you. It's an amazing tool to make you build your inner strength and make a better you. It's amazing. And I'm in awe that what you just described me is what I've been feeling since I was 5 years old.